Let's
Are we
begin.
starting the
Yes,
meeting now?
let's begin.
Okay.
And since we're, if you wish to
6:32?
record.
Well,
Oh,
it's
that's
being
right.
recorded, so
Okay,
I don't think I need to tape record
we
it.
might as well start with item 2. Welcome back, David.
Thank you. Great to be here.
In
You guys,
keeping with
the
our,
little I've seen, you guys have been busy and you have a bigger committee now.
so in keeping with our practice of having visitors at the table participating, I guess you can't vote to adjourn, but other than that, feel free to participate.
Thank you.
The technical status is that you will have to be reinstated by the Board of Selectmen. You're on the agenda for tomorrow
Right.
night,
Yeah, good. Yeah.
along with my conflict of interest for something and a disclosure and your reappointment
To the
for
planning board.
and also to the
Yeah.
Cape Light Compact alternate position.
It's efficient, but it's a lot in one meeting.
Right. We'll talk a little bit more about the select board meeting later.
Yeah.
Robert isn't here. Does anyone know if he's in town?
I'm sorry. I'm
Is that
not-
Robert Shapiro.
wow.
You
Probably
just,
in
you know,
New
I
York.
heard someone coming in, that was you, Lily, probably, yeah.
I haven't heard. Okay. All right. So the first order of business and regular business is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Lily sent an email. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes from the previous meeting?
Looked great to me.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's unanimous. Okay.
A point of order.
Yes,
David's a guest. Is
Right.
okay.
David is a guest,
Yeah.
technically.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get on to the business. I sort of put this in, it's not quite the orders in which we'll present it to the select board, but maybe it was the first thing. Where do we stand on the grant process?
Okay, so Carol and I have been thinking that we are going to aim to do 3 grants a year.
Okay,
And for this year, we have okay, remind me here, I get all of them mixed up. It's the Community Green
Green
Community
Communities
Grants.
Act.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's tentatively due. The deadline is in March. They couldn't give us a definitive answer. It's not announced yet, but I did get in touch with the coordinator. And so for that, we are thinking of looking for funding for at least 3 municipalities. The elementary school,
municipal buildings.
municipal buildings for insular shades / thermal
Okay,
covering drapes. Yeah, so that's going to be the first one. We are going to present it to the DPW to see if there are some other municipal buildings that might need that as well. So that would be our first one. The due date is at the end of March.
So what are the 3 buildings, please?
It's the elementary school, town hall, and COA.
Those are the 3 recommendations I
Dr.
gave to
Margaret
you. Yeah. Okay.
We've been in touch with Margaret.
Okay, because usually Rise Engineering does a walkthrough of municipal buildings to see what the engineers think could benefit and be cost effective. And they've done that annually, at least maybe biannually. So you should make sure that she's going to do that too.
Okay. Now you were in touch with her. Did you put this idea across to her? What we were just asking about dates.
With her lately.
Okay, so we'll let her know.
So the other thing I want to make clear that there are shades and there are drapes. And so just be clear when you're talking about it that you're talking about one or the other because they really are very different.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
just-
I mean, I think we have to research exactly what we're looking for, because it's just they're just
Shades or
drapes.
drapes.
Yes,
The overarching term
Thermal
I've heard is
shades
window
and-
treatment.
yeah.
Window treatment.
Cover,
Thermal
Both.
window treatment, yeah.
Okay.
Thermal.
Yeah.
treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would
Yeah.
be a Green
Thanks,
Communities grant, and its aim would be energy conservation,
Right.
Yeah.
reduction of use of energy.
And who is the coordinator these days?
Coordinator for what?
The Green Communities?
Ours is Lisa Sullivan for the South Shore area.
And that's at DLER?
Yes,
Or the CEC? Which one?
she's
DLER.
DOER. Yeah.
DLER is Green Communities grants.
Okay.
So just a question, so the shades and drapes, what about the stuff, the films that you put on the windows? Does that in any way qualify, or is that not considered?
Is that temporary?
No.
Is the film to reduce ultraviolet light in the summertime for air conditioning, or is it for thermal?
Well, I know they have it for the summertime, and I don't know whether they have something that, you know, reflects interior heat back in the wintertime.
But that's radiative, and we're worried about conduction and convection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too sure that that's relevant. Might be, but I think you'd lose most of your heat from the building from conduction and convection.
Do you need to have for the proposal a specific type of treatment and cost and all of that?
Oh, in order to
So
apply?
that means
Oh,
like
yeah.
a professional assessment of these various treatments, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To get
that's-
that done as part of the application.
Right.
And
Yeah.
perhaps, again, coordinating with Margaret Song, Rise Engineering can help us, because they've helped us in the Green Communities grants in the past. And now that there are about 6 or 8 towns that are green communities, Cape Lycombe is with the energy part of it, energy conservation is taking on the role of helping towns with that.
Oh, okay.
So, under their energy conservation funds.
So are you saying that maybe there might be funding from CLC in addition to the Green Communities
There's
grant?
technical assistance in writing the grants.
Oh.
But that technical assistance, like our Green Communities application, was a $30,000 or $40,000 engineering assessment that they
Right.
did for us. From Rise Engineering, it's substantial, yeah.
Yeah, that's all very valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do know that they do have monies available for towns.
They do, and that will come out in terms of what we're eligible for. Mostly it's heat plant replacement. If there's any reason why we would need to replace or make the heat plant more efficient.
So there
Which-
might be buildings that could benefit from that?
Right, so that means we have to talk to DPW. But Rise Engineering goes through our buildings all the time, looking for ways to save money.
Yeah, so they ought to have information that's pretty current now
Yes.
about we need more insulation in town hall or whatever it might be.
Right, and that was, we were going to approach them about
Yeah.
some of these other
Right.
buildings.
Okay, what's the second grant?
So the second one is, this has been brought up on committee before, but we're just tying together some loose ends. This is something that David had recommended, and it was about the building codes and zoning bylaws and identifying options for limiting new construction and renovation in vulnerable areas.
Mhm.
Which is a lot to bite off.
So
Yeah.
but the Cape Cod Commission has a grant to develop a model bylaw for climate adaptation.
Bylaw of zoning.
Zoning bylaw. And they're working with 4 towns. Eastham is one of the 4. But we can also try to participate to the extent possible. They got a grant to go develop a model bylaw. And I'm sure there are places where we can have some input to
So
it.
that's under development now?
They have the grant and they're now
Working on it, okay.
So you should probably stay in touch with them,
Yeah,
but we also need the planning board to somehow start being aware of this
Yeah.
kind of thing.
well, there's a couple of us on the planning board that have already shared that sentiment, so.
So, and the idea with that, what you were looking at was that a professional consultant, either an engineer or a lawyer, or maybe both, would be needed to evaluate all this and come up with.
Right, and it sounds like
Programs.
maybe for sure there's the Cape Cod Commission grant that they already have that could serve that purpose, or at least go a long way towards serving it. Obviously, each of these things have to be adapted for each town, but still, having model bylaws would be. Do you have any idea when that's going to be completed, that work?
They were talking about this spring.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
But I do agree with David that in building the model bylaw, looking at the whole county, Wellfleet's very different than Barnstable.
right.
So I think that there may be really.
it's not a county bylaw, it's a town bylaw.
It's a town bylaw, but
We're
it
not
would
that
be.
different
No,
than
no,
Eastham.
yeah, it's,
Right.
I agree with you about that, but I mean, if they're working for each individual town, maybe we can spring forward off of Eastham's bylaw, but at the same time, too, it probably makes sense that we would want to have our own engineer and attorney take a look at it
Well,
to make
a
sure
model-
that's applicable to
A
Wellfleet.
model bylaw is a model bylaw. It's
Yes.
meant to be then customized for each
Exactly,
jurisdiction,
customized,
each
so,
town. So you're right, I agree.
yeah.
So we were thinking of going after grant money for that from the coastal zoning management grant, which is, that deadline is in June. So that would be number 2.
I wonder if there's a
And
way
this is
to,
state money for vulnerability? What, or,
that would be for the zoning study.
Zoning.
Coastal
Strictly
So
zoning.
what
coastal
then
zoning
occurs to me is
management.
if you talk to the Cape Cod Commission and found out, probably they could do it today, what they think it's gonna look like in terms of level of detail or whatever. But there's no doubt work beyond that, to your point, Lily, a minute ago, for us to do, or for Wellfleet to do. So, but if we coordinate it with the commission, so we're not proposing to repeat anything they've done.
Mhm.
And maybe if their report's done in March and this is due in June, maybe it would be possible to even directly include that piggybacking in the proposal to say,
Yeah.
we're building on this model bylaw, and you could describe it in whatever way. The whole thing could be an attachment to the proposal.
the proposal is due in June, but we
Right.
won't get the money for some time, so the
Right.
bylaw will be finished by then.
Right.
So even if we only have a draft, we say, we can state their anticipated time frame, and then say, we'll take that bylaw and tailor it.
But yeah, and then this is a big
For a
change that
special
requires
town meeting in 2020,
probably a special, either, yeah, it would probably be a special town meeting, otherwise it's still a year from this spring. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it, but.
Yeah,
But
and
it does-
already Suzanne and Carol are working with the Cape Cod Commission, and
Oh.
Dick is our representative to the Cape Cod Commission, so we'll be looped into
Yeah.
what's been going on there.
planning bylaws have a special approval process, and they have to go before the planning board.
Yeah, but I do think that I think what the town would want and what the planning board would probably want too would be, kind of to your point again, Uli, is some sort of Wellfleet specific assessment of, let's say, the model bylaws for, and if we can get money for that independent assessment of the model bylaws, what would be the impact here? How would it work in Wellfleet? What would the change mean for Wellfleet versus some other town? All that is a follow-on project to the Cape Cod Commission's work.
Mhm.
So the timing could be kind of lined up.
Okay, and what's number
Let's
3?
see.
So number 3, we have the grant funder, MPV, in fall, most likely, although there's other options. And there are 2 potential projects.
MPV stands for
The, municipal,
vulnerability
Vulnerabilities.
planning?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So, of course, we're working with the Cape Cod Commission for the low-lying roads vulnerability. They're going to submit an application for us for the spring NPV.
Okay.
But we were thinking that maybe in the autumn, for a third project. So we have,
Also, this is a 4th because the Cape Cod Commission is a
okay,
3rd.
that does count, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
Because
But
we're
we're
gonna
in
tackle
an assisting
flight.
role
Right,
there.
yeah, we're assisting role, yeah, we're not spearheading it anymore,
Okay.
but yes,
Okay.
that's true, it's number 4. So, David had sent 3 ideas. I think I've passed around the email before, but this is just much more thought out. So the first one is the one that we're gonna do with
One.
CZM.
That's enough. Give me
Yeah.
Help me remember what I wrote.
Right. And we're looking for other ideas as well, and so maybe we can all come to a consensus on what that
Yeah.
4th project might be.
I would like to put in something about assessing vulnerable populations in the event of climate change. Seniors, in other words, who don't drive.
Yeah, at-risk people, not just at-risk buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
And how we can contact them and how we can evacuate them should it be necessary on a systematic basis. And I know we have a call-in program, and I'm sure all 18 people who participate are covered. But now there's the remainder of the over 75 or non-driving population that we have to worry about.
Are there any other at-risk populations besides senior, very
It's a good
elderly?
point, and there must be handicapped people as well.
And also, it is related to location too. You could
Yes.
be not handicapped or elderly, and depending on where you live and down what rutted road kind of thing, it could be a problem.
You know, and also children could be at risk.
So,
At risk.
Part of this is to identify the people and then to come up with some scheme of contacting them and some scheme of evacuating them.
Right, yeah.
That's the goal,
And it would be also people without cars for whatever reason,
yes.
yeah.
And the question I wonder about is if we're talking about the people part of this equation, if there's funding available from a different place in the state to do with social service funding for programs and grants. Just it would be
elderly
driven by
housing.
climate change, but the
Right.
actual money, there's got to be social service funding that's available for
Elder Affairs
Right.
is the office.
Was it I have all these grants like pushed into my brain, but I don't know if it was the MVP that we had worked on or the license plate or something else, but there was specifically something for, what was it called, social justice?
Yeah, I think that's the
Population?
MVP.
Climate-
Right, MVP.
Climate
It
justice
emphasizes
is
that.
sort of what this is sometimes called.
Right, and it was very much related to the climate, but
Yeah.
that was a subcategory, so, yeah.
I remember the only thing that we thought about was there's a trailer park near Kendrick Avenue.
Behind
We
the
thought of that
Wellfleet
in
Theater.
terms of,
And
pardon?
Wellfleet,
Behind the Wellfleet Theater? Behind the Wellfleet Cinema.
was that
Down
East
Mayo
Town or-
Beach.
Oh, and one near Mayo
Oh,
Beach.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
both. So is the idea to choose priorities of mountains?
Doing them all sequentially.
Okay.
I
Okay.
would, moving ahead, you know, we need one more for this year and then more ideas for ensuing years.
Well, my thought, even though I put down this sonar assessment thing, which I actually do think is really important, but I think that the at-risk buildings and the at-risk people is more important, just personally. I think figure out what the heck is going on in the harbor and clean it up would be a huge benefit to the town and frankly kind of a marketing benefit to say Wellfleet's got the cleaned up harbor in whatever areas. But that's less critical to
So
me than the
on
other.
this list, number one, reevaluating the building codes, we've already covered separately.
Right.
Right?
And we're gonna go ahead with that.
And- yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay, so the vulnerability of assessment of buildings and people, yes. Now, what is three? I don't quite understand how we relate to the harbor as an
Well, it's to
assessment.
do with the health of the harbor because there's a some information that people have spoken about, and I believe some research in this from the Center for Coastal Studies about the volume of pollution-causing equipment, rebar, traps, metal, who knows what else, thrown over, just garbage is sitting on the bottom of Wellfleet Harbor. And the Center for Coastal Studies has a service and equipment to map what's going on under the water. And so if we had a map, and no one knows what the problem is. It might be small, it might be large, but if the Center for Coastal Studies went through with this sonar device they've got, and they've used it in other areas, what is concerned about
So
what's
we're
underwater.
asking for a grant to go assess what's at the bottom
Right.
of the harbors.
So the grant would be money to pay the Center for Coastal Studies to assess what's going on the bottom of the harbor. And I don't know, I have no idea what that would cost. But that way we'd at least know what we're dealing with. And if it was major, then it would mean, okay, what's it going to cost to actually fix that? And then go through a town meeting and all. If it's small, then we could say, oh, phew, you know.
We're not quite reinventing the wheel, but that's been a 6-month discussion with the Shellfish Advisory Committee and the Shellfish Association.
that's
They're
great.
going out right now, but they're trying to do it by enforcement because last winter there was a lot of gear
That's where some of
that
this
was lost. So what they're doing is either all the gear, I mean, what they're trying to do is to either have people, but they're talking about using grapnels and going out and dragging the soft parts of the harbor
to clean
because
it
of
up.
gear that got out there. Some people, there's some players or bad actors that people are aware of, that people got so much gear that they weren't sure, you know, where it all got to when the ice took it apart. But they're in, Nancy Savetta would be very aware of, but she may not know about this program. I'm just saying that
That's
the
okay.
metal gear and the shellfish
Yeah.
stuff that gets scattered is most of what it is.
Okay, Chuck, can you coordinate with Nancy on this and talk
Yeah.
to David?
Yeah, and I
David
have
on the-
this David or David Seidler. Yeah, okay, I haven't been able to get. I'll see the shellfish. I'm going to be at the Shellfish Fishermen's Association on Wednesday night. I missed the Shellfish Advisory meeting, but now I know who's on board. I'll talk to Zach Dixon or Dave Seidler, but they're in working with Nancy that way to, and it's more
so
for
I think
enforcement.
Doing it on enforcement is kind of takes care of things going forward. What I wonder about is what's happened in the past 100 years.
Yeah,
What's-
iron in the harbor. Yes.
Maybe it's more than iron. Maybe it's only. I mean, I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah,
So, but maybe.
but they're doing sonar.
Yeah.
It's
So
you're-
see all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what I just to jump ahead, what I was thinking about after you talked to Nancy about it is we could actually have a meeting with a couple of us and Nancy and the Center for Coastal Studies, just to talk about this as an idea, exploratory meeting.
Mhm.
See what they say.
How does this relate to the dredging, though? I mean, isn't that gonna destroy
it's
the
very related to it,
bottom?
but the whole harbor, the entire harbor isn't being dredged. It's the
Just the channels.
the federal channel and the area around the
Anchorage.
I believe
Yeah.
that dredging consists of sucking up the mud, but I don't think it will pick up rebar.
debris.
Okay.
It may expose it by sucking all the mud from around it, but not remove it.
I do, but to your point, clearly it would have to be coordinated, even if it's not the same thing. I mean, the harbor's way bigger than the area that's going to be dredged, but still, you know, you'd want to coordinate.
Since we're dealing with climate, and I know last time we was more sitting at this table and finding out that there actually was a, we're talking about adaptation and adjustment to climate change, but it was done back in 12, 14 for the Shellfish Advisory Committee. It was a full-on study.
Mm-hmm.
So the question to them would have been, if I'd gotten to their 6th of January meeting, was, is there reason to update that? Where is a copy of it so that we could have it on hand? And that was for shellfish adaptability with rising climate, and sort of, John Portnoy was part of that. There were all the right people were
Well, that's another
on
reason to
board
sit down
with
with
that.
Nancy
And she wasn't on board then.
but she would know about it.
She might know about it.
Yeah.
She might know about it. But anyway, she would be, perhaps that and the committee, the Shellfish Advisory Committee is pretty young and doesn't look like they've been advisory for a long time. Just looking at who I'm seeing there. Nancy's equally new. But anyway, so they may not be as aware of, I think I mentioned it to you, Carol, the last time we were sitting here, that wow, they've already done that work, whether it needs to be updated. But at least would give us another chapter on how the harbor
Yeah.
might, or how the harbor commercial aspects would fare in rising tides or whatever. I mean, I mentioned the accesses for the shellfish guys and trucks, but that's as much a DPW, and because they already have to deal with it if we get serious events.
You know,
Okay.
what I would be happy to do, just to get some information, because that's kind of what I feel like we're kind of shooting in the dark a little bit about this, is call the Center for Coastal Studies and just talk to the right person and have them send us information. What do they actually do? How long does it take? What does it cost?
Okay.
What do the results look like? You know, and just data.
Send that just so I have a sense of, and,
Yeah.
we can talk to Nancy,
And
or I can talk to Nancy.
Loop Nancy into that
Yeah.
too. Okay.
Okay. What's number 4?
So, okay, last item is just about the meeting tomorrow night with the Board of Select.
Oh, we'll
We'll
cover
talk
that.
about
We're going
that.
to come back to that at the end.
Oh,
After we've
okay.
heard what everyone's doing, then we will put
Go back
together-
to, okay, because I just
Yeah.
wanted to throw in something I wanted to add to that, but
Okay.
sure, yeah, that could
Okay.
certainly
Very
wait.
good.
Can I ask a question about municipal vulnerability?
Yes.
If I could say that 3 times fast. And I'm just curious if catastrophic wildfires, you know, Australia's on my mind, is in scope for
It is.
this neck of the woods.
It is as a vulnerability potentially, but I think when the group evaluated the specific vulnerabilities of Wellfleet, I'm not sure if that was on the list. But you have the plan, but that's the 2016 plan. There was a workshop last fall where the specific vulnerabilities were evaluated, and I'm not sure if that's on Wellfleet's list. I'll try to get a hold of that report and let you know.
I expect it's on the Park Services list.
It probably
I
is,
expect
yes.
It's,
Right, which means it's in Wellfleet, yeah.
well, that would, we'd have to tap into that, because that's the bulk of where our.
Right. So it's a potential. There were a list of all the things that might go wrong and then which one applied to your community. And I don't remember if that one was raised for Wellfleet and Truro. We did Wellfleet Truro joint exercise. So, yeah, but a lot of things that, like flooding, normally you can't think of flooding as being one of our issues because we live on a sandbar until you think of what happened at the Beachcomber, right? So are there any other places where all of a sudden a rainstorm can wash a road into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things that if we did an assessment, professional assessment, that would be one of the things that someone should take a fresh look at. Maybe fires are the same way.
It used to be a big concern years ago. I remember when I started working for the Park Service as a seasonal employee, as a seasonal interpretive ranger, the training talked about the history of the park and how fires were a big problem, and that's why there are so many fire roads cut crisscross into the middle of the woods.
And there's a fire tower on Route 6.
Exactly, and there is actually a fire person who is whose job it is to control fires and in the park itself.
Yes,
But
they
can be it can be a concern of
They
this
do a lot of
area.
fire training because they have public days where they bring the kids in and the kids get to put out fires with their hoses.
To that 2012, there was a Barnstable County wildfire preparedness plan. So
Oh,
that was
there is, yeah.
2012.
Yeah,
And I see a map, I don't see a lot of text. It was something under the cooperative extension.
yeah,
But Barnstable County may have already tapped into those resources,
Right.
that would cover us all.
Yeah, the assembly has had some introductions to that
Mhm.
and what the county is doing as far as that's is regarded. But I do know that more specifically too, the national park is very concerned about fires. We did have a field trip a few years ago. The Cape Cod National Seashore Advisory Commission members, and if it ever gets up and running again, I'm Wellfleet's delegate there. We did have a field trip about that specifically a couple of years ago. So I mean, it was very interesting. It is a very important concern. So I appreciate you bringing that up because I think we should be paying more attention to it as well. Thank you.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, just to sum it up, we could use some more proposal grant project ideas. So.
Okay,
The other thing too is I was thinking as you were talking about vulnerability of the people. It might be a good idea to call Sarah Peak's office and Julian Sears' office to see where that might fit in. And if there is state funding and where the grants might be, they may have a better handle on that than we do.
Okay.
I just was thinking in my mind about a coordinated proposal because a lot of times I know funders like to see multiple sources of funding, even if it's the state. And so if we had a thing that said climate change, at-risk buildings, at-risk people. And we'd be asking for the building funding maybe from one place and the people funding from someplace else. And put that and have it be a coordinated proposal going to, like maybe it's two, I don't know, maybe not, 2 agencies, let's say.
Yeah.
That's just a thought.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the global covenant of mayor's status and actions. Normally I'd look to Bob, but
I don't think we know anything particularly current.
that's new. But what about summary? Okay, well, we're going to have to put together some statement for the meeting about what we've done over the last year. You think you'd be in a position to summarize where we are on that?
Do we know he's going to be at the meeting tomorrow?
I don't know. I didn't hear one way or the other.
He's probably out of town since he's not here.
Well, I know we have gotten badges under the globe,
Right.
and what they mean is not quite clear, but essentially we get brownie points and yes for all the other work we've been doing.
Is it like Girl Scouts and Boy
Yeah,
I
Scouts?
was thinking about the sash,
Merit badge.
merit badges.
Exactly, that's their model. But We did a vulnerability assessment, that was one of the things. We have a plan in place for reduction, that's another, under the green communities. So the Global Covenant of Mayors tends to tie in all the other things we're doing, including having a goal. And I looked at what the goal we wrote, which was net zero by 2030. At the time, we were very ambitious, but let's stick to it till we find out we're wrong. That's our position, and we're sticking to it, right?
Well, I could try contacting Robert by email and see if, or
Right.
phone.
Yes, I
And
think you
get-
should, because we'll need to present something
Okay.
as a summary for that.
I'll do that.
Okay, status of photovoltaic array on the landfill, currently under construction. All right, where does that stand? One, as far as I know, all the Amoresco work is done in terms of installing the PV, and I believe they've finished all the electronics that they can.
Yes, I believe that's right. We just got an update from them a couple days ago. From June.
So what's left is some paperwork, which I'll go through, but we need to have clear title to the landfill. That's in land court. It went in December 6th.
Yeah.
It'll take 2 or 3 months, or maybe in another month and a half, we'll have clear title so that we can then go to Eversource, and Eversource will put up their 5 poles and the transformers on the poles. I don't know why they need 5 poles, except that maybe these wires are much heavier than the wires on a typical
Yeah,
street.
I
So they
remember
need
seeing
more
where
of
they
it.
are in the plan, but it seems like a
I
lot.
thought they were all bunched together, right?
Pretty close together.
Maybe they're holding transformers.
Maybe, yeah.
But that needs to be done. I don't know how long it will take Eversource to do it.
But
the
they're not
next,
even gonna put it on their list, so to speak,
until we get
until
caught.
the clear title is done.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the paperwork. So there's something called an that's the title. It was filed December 6th. We have executed the pilot agreement, that's payment in lieu of taxes, which means that we are, now that all these arrays are installed, we get to assess them as personal property. And there's a payment in lieu of taxes. There's something about a payment. Amoresco will pay up to $5,000 initially. Then there needs to be an alternative on-bill credit, AOB, form, which states essentially how we allocate the credits to the various accounts. Now, they're twofold. We can do that. That is, the town clerk currently gets a bill with 35 meter readings on it, and we'll have to allocate the credits that we're going to get from Amoresco to each of the 35 meters. It used to be quite serious to get it right, because if you over-allocated, the credits would go unused, and if you under-allocated, you'd be paying a bill. But now this credit is just so many cents, and the 5 cents per bill that we pay can be used against any part of the bill. The bill's about 17 or 18 cents, so it's very hard to over-allocate. That is, it used to be the credits could only be used to pay for electricity, but now you can use them to pay for the distribution charges. So you have a lot of headroom in that. And nobody can tell, because you can't tell at the end of the year where you are, because you get more energy in the summer and less in the winter, but the bill goes up and down in the seasons. So it's supposed to balance out on a yearly basis, but nobody's got the software to do that, so you just get away with murder. Okay.
But that seems like a line, and we've talked about that in
Right.
the past. It seems like it would be really great to have it all consolidated.
So that's a project. GB, if you got some spare time, I'd like to give you a project. The project is to work with Eversource to get one consolidated bill for the town. Now, that's something that they will do routinely. There's just a form to fill out. But the next part is to get all of our credits applied to the consolidated bills, so we no longer need to allocate. And that's something that's probably got to be worked out with Eversource, because I don't think they have done that before.
So when you say the town, you're talking about the municipal
The
facility.
municipals, the municipality has roughly 35 accounts. And those accounts are entered into the Mass, what is it, the MMI, Mass Municipal, the program that Bob keeps filling out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mass
BNDI.
Energy Insight, Mass
Yeah.
Energy Insight.
Yeah.
So, play this by me again, after we get a consolidated bill, then we want to do what?
Apply the credits to the consolidated bill
Okay.
rather than to each
Individual.
individual account,
Yeah,
because we will have one account we're paying. So that makes less paperwork for the town, less paperwork for Eversource. It simply makes too much sense to be easy.
And it might make sense to do both those parts in a coordinated way
Right,
through UGB, because it's possible, I don't know, that Eversource might say, oh, if you're going to do just a consolidated bill, it's this form. If you're going to do a consolidated bill and later apply to the credits differently, it's a different form. So if I were you, I would talk to them about both things from the very
Right.
start.
the
Eversource.
consolidated bill is something they have done before. The reason for holding back on that was until we had Mass Energy Insight, you lost visibility into the portions of the bill. So you got a big charge, but you got less insight into what buildings were using the electricity. But with Mass Energy Insight, we know what every meter reads electronically, and we don't need the bill to tell us where we're using the electricity. So we've stepped beyond that because we're a green community and we have Mass Energy Insight. So that's another thing. We don't really care about details on the consolidated bill because we have other ways of getting the information. And you might need to work with Bob to get access to and instructions on how to use Mass Energy Insight, because among other things, it will list all the accounts.
They were hoping to consolidate.
Yes, they're hoping to consolidate.
It's a perfect thing for a good engineer.
Yeah, and we're
Easy
helping
for you
the
to
town
say.
and
It
reducing
would
the
be for me.
paperwork, because one of the disadvantages of the solar array is you have to do this allocation and worry about are the credits going on the right bills or not.
Right.
So I'd like to get beyond that.
Right, that would be great.
So if you don't mind doing that, I'd appreciate it. So, okay, then there's something called an estoppel agreement, and I have no idea what it was, but I looked up estoppel and it says, we agree not to sue one another, or whatever.
Yeah.
Amoresco needs the town to sign that. And there's a utility document called Exhibit H, which is the allocation that we're hoping to bypass with your activities. Amoresco doesn't know that we're working on this yet, so let's find out whether it's feasible before we tell them we don't need an Exhibit H.
Yeah, because we want to pull Amoresco into this process at some point, but we need to find out more first.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we have a master account, they
Right.
can credit everything to the master
Right.
account.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, where are we on the agenda? Out of Cape Energize.
So, I got a little update today. I forgot to bring it, but I will update the data on it for the select board meeting tomorrow. But the short answer is there's not a huge number, but I think an increase of about 11 to 12% in number of systems installed from when we stopped the program. They have agreed kind of nicely to continue the Out of Cape Energized preferred pricing even though the program's over. they're not going to continue forever, but they basically, anybody that had any slight contact at any point during the program would get that pricing, even if they didn't even send them a proposal yet. So they've been doing that. So they sent me new numbers today about 4 o'clock, and I'll put them in what I say to the board tomorrow. But it's not a huge amount, but it's more. And so the total and the numbers and the carbon offset and all that's higher. So,
Okay, good. That was 2017 that we started that.
I know.
It's
Yeah,
2020.
wait, it's
We might have to wait and think about the next one.
Well, I had an idea, but I had to step back from it a while ago. I think Dick, or maybe we talked about here, of doing an Outer Cape Energize only focused on commercial customers, meaning hotels, restaurants, because we wanted to do that the first time, but it ended up being really only residential, essentially. And places like the Truro Tradesman Park and other places that have these huge giant buildings, but that's a whole other thing. The sell is one-on-one with each business owner. You can't have a community meeting and have them come, they're not going to show up. You have to, so it's labor intensive to go around and meet with, when they're available, not when we want it, when they're available, meet with these business owners and make a pitch one roof at a time.
David, you may have mentioned at this table, but I was wrongly aware, or I was over-aware that that's what this last Outer Cape Energize was going to focus on. Did it just, was that the talk at the beginning and it never gelled?
In the beginning, it was absolutely a formal part of the plan initially.
For the commercial.
But then it turned out that we didn't have the bandwidth. It was going to be led by Jay Gurwitch in Provincetown.
Right.
He was going to run that part of it. He said, I can't do it. No one else could do it. And so we kind of let that.
Okay.
We still talked to some business owners. I had a meeting with Mac Hay, for example, things like that. But 98% of the activity was residential.
Okay, but I was right that was 3 years ago. That
and
was
I think knowing what I know now, I'd say it's better to have it as a separate program anyway.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a whole different sell, you could say.
Yeah, I would say also, Dick and I were at a meeting at the Cape Cod Commission last week, and there could be buy-in, strong buy-in from Orleans, according to what we heard at that table.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, especially for the commercial, I mean, one of the Board of Selectmen members was there.
Kevin.
Yeah.
They're all Kevins involved.
Yeah. Well, both Kevins were there, and then, someone from the Energy Committee, whatever they call it there. They were both Kevins, and they were talking about the same thing, only commercial, and that there were great opportunities. So.
And this what pops into my mind, it's just over and over again what comes up, and there's no way to avoid it, is bandwidth. How much can we actually do? How many grants can we write? How many this? How many that? And there's no easy answer. We have to just do our best to bite off the right things and not do everything all at once, because then we'll just run out of steam.
Did anybody talk to Cumberland Farms? Anything going on their route?
No idea.
I don't know how that flies.
So while we're on commercial, my wife was telling me she heard that Willie's Gym was closing.
Willie's Gym is currently closed because they had a fire and the building inspector has judged the building to be structurally unsound, and they won't get an occupancy permit until there are major upgrades to the fire suppression system and the other things.
Yeah, I was
But they claim
sent out
that they are
updates.
going to reopen and they're collecting dues for.
They were hooking up to the town system yesterday.
So
Well, they're
if you-
hooking up the town water, and they put in a
Suppression.
new fire suppression system. I think those are the two big things.
That was the two biggest things.
And everything that I've heard, and we get emails, if you've ever been a member there, from Barbara every day practically about updates, says that they're planning to reopen.
Okay, because I mean, they if I remember, they got a huge solar system on the roof.
It's a huge array.
And if they were going to close, I was kind of like, my God, what's going to happen to that?
It will keep sending money to them.
That's no, every time I see that, I realize that is a big.
Well, and I think they're the third largest taxpayer in East Thames. So East Thames taxes would take a hit if that just sort of went away.
And is there anything new
One more-
about
I'd like-
the free systems? Is there anything new about that?
About which?
The free systems that they're willing, ACE is willing to give to nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, well, there's been.
First of all, over the 2 years, free has gone to 5 cents.
Okay.
5 cents
There's been a
discount.
ton of work done on that actually with the church, what else?
No, we've done a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
seashore.
Yeah.
The seashore, I mean,
Yeah.
basically all these things that we've tried, and it's not, none of it's because of ACE actually, in my view, just didn't pan out.
Outer Cape Health still isn't,
Outer Cape Health.
are they still dead or?
Well, Brian Boyle was spearheading that. I haven't talked to him recently.
Okay.
So it's possible Outer Cape Health in Provincetown only might
No.
seem to be the most likely. The pharmacy building,
Yeah.
Outer Cape House, needs a new roof, and they said we don't have the money to put a new roof on, so we can't put solar on it.
Okay.
So it's still kind of percolating along, Lily. It's a good question, but nothing's happened yet. And they're sticking by their offer. I mean, they're not.
There is something on Outer Cape Health that we should consider. We're getting close to the point where electric cars are going to be a practical alternative.
Yeah.
And maybe we should start focusing on that. Not focusing on where to put the charging stations, because the charging stations will come quickly. They're sprouting up all over the place.
Right.
But focusing maybe on a car show, an electric car show out here,
Yeah.
maybe in conjunction with Orleans and East End.
That would
Just
be great.
get some manufacturers to bring in their models. Maybe, I think, when do we think? A year from now, in the fall, or next, or
I don't know.
1 year? It's got to be the point where the average person can say, I can see myself doing that. For a pure EV car, and it's getting close.
I'm just, you know,
It's a great idea.
Maybe the 10%
I'm
leading edge.
raising the question about the fall, and the reason I'm saying that is because, you know, we're coming up to the point where we're gonna do some car change out, and we've been seriously talking about electric car
Mhm.
because we can get from our house to here
Mhm.
without having to worry about running out of electricity. And I'm just thinking,
Another time is fine with me. When
well,
would you
yeah, I mean,
suggest?
the point is do we want to just focus on you know, the permanent residents on the Cape, or do we want to get some interest going on, you know, the summer crowd who might be able to, you know, lives close enough that they might be able to generate some interest with them as well.
Well,
Can I ask a question? I know that there's money for EVs.
not much anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
I ran into somebody, oddly enough, at the post office who said that they had gotten $10,000 off of their Chevy Volt when they
Yes.
bought it. Okay.
But
So,
what, the way that
is that-
incentive works is in Massachusetts, the first 500,000 cars you sell, there are incentives. But all the existing
Goes down.
manufacturers have gotten over that hump. So the Bolt doesn't qualify, the Tesla doesn't qualify anymore. So you talk to
Prius-
people who
Prius
did
is-
get it,
Same.
but that was history. It's
okay.
if you introduce a brand new model of electric car, like Subaru.
You know, I wonder if there's something like a Massachusetts Electric Car Association, and
There's-
the dealers are all members of it. Could we partner, use that group to kind of get the car show going?
I
Well,
don't
I know
know.
there was a car show on the Cape someplace.
It
I've
was in
heard-
Orleans and it was organized by either the commission or the compact or some group
Uh-huh.
to have an electric car show, yeah. I'd like to do one out here.
I agree with you. I think it would be a great idea.
Do you know when the Orleans
and-
one is happening, or did it happen? Or
It was a one-off. I don't know that it's going to be annual, although it might be.
when did it happen? I'm just trying to think about
I
spillover.
heard something about it on NPR
Yeah,
recently, so I have no idea.
but
But you know, so to GB's point is, or Chuck's point, would it be, I mean, are we talking mostly about state funding or federal funding
We're
and
not talking
state
about any
funding?
funding.
No, for people who buy electric vehicles, if they, I mean, if it,
I
if
don't think
it's,
you're going to get any subsidy. I
No
think it's going to
subsidy.
stand on its own feet.
well, you know, I'm really surprised because I was testifying on another bill at the State House, and the committee said that they were going to be doing something
Okay.
on transportation. You know, who knows what it is or if they are. But I know that Julian Sear was at our last meeting of the Assembly of Delegates, and they were talking about doing an energy bill by the end of January.
Right.
So whether they're working on something that would give
So
residents, I mean, so I think it would be for year-round people more than for
okay,
summer people
so
too.
let's. I don't know whether there are subsidies involved. I think that this technology will stand on its own 2 feet without subsidies once battery prices fall, and they're reaching the critical point right now.
Yeah.
And the range is what's critical.
Yeah,
So-
range down here is
Range,
the biggest thing,
right.
yeah.
Now, answer your question about whether we care about the summer residents or not. I'm going to go back to our goal, which is the Global Covenant of Mayors'
Right.
goal to reduce energy consumption in the town, measured by what the residents are using, not what the people who pass through are using, because we have no idea how to reduce that or way to measure it. So
but
let's
if
just
somebody who's a
focus on
summer
getting
resident showed up at the car show and bought a car,
that's nice.
Yeah,
That
say,
would be
well,
fine.
well, that's my thinking is, you know, the
We'll buy
residents,
a car in New York or New Connecticut, we'll never
Right.
know about it.
but the thing is, you know, if the residents are the target, that's all well and good, but if you can get, you know, buy-in from the non-residents, then, you know, you're getting that many more electric vehicles on the road, which is good for everybody. I mean,
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily meet any, you know, town or Cape goal or anything like that.
But it also you'll probably find it easier to get people's attention in the fall than in the summer.
Yeah, because when it's the quote-unquote season, and most of the people that live here year-round that might be interested in that market
Can't
might
get
be
to have a
busy,
day off.
yeah.
And you won't get a place to hold it because everything will be taken.
Instead of struggling with that,
you know,
you know, and also it doesn't mean that that's the only time we do it either. I mean, if we find that it's successful, or we find that there's a need for it, or people are very interested, that are
Right.
seasonal,
So
we can
my
do it in
approach
the
would
time.
normally be to contact dealers, but I'm not sure who dealers would be in an electric car market yet.
well, that's why I
There's
was
one
thinking maybe
Chevy dealer in
there's
Hyannis.
not very many, but maybe they have their own little association. We could do it through that.
Yeah, I know that it wouldn't be unprecedented. There was a Tesla at Oyster Fest a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
So I don't know, maybe contacting someone from Oyster Fest and seeing how they got the Tesla down here.
What's her Mac's wife?
Elspeth.
Elspeth was
But she got a rechargeable
She got a Volt.
hybrid.
Oh, she did.
Right.
Oh.
That's all.
No,
I thought
Yeah,
she got a
she's-
Chevy Volt.
yeah, you're
She
right.
had a
It's
Volt.
not a,
It's
it's
a
not,
hybrid that's plug-in hybrid.
plug-in hybrid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's nice. It has 60 miles of range. If you're just driving around town, that's fine. Well, we're worried about 200 miles of range
yeah,
is not enough.
So I'm thinking about buying an electric car next year, and I'm worried about how I have to upgrade my electric system in my garage for it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this,
I think you,
but I don't want to have to go somewhere to charge my car. I want to
Right.
be able to charge
So
it at my house.
there are-
So
there-
could this show address that?
yes,
Yeah.
there are a
That's a
few
really
kinds
good
of
idea,
charges. Level 1 is you plug it into the wall.
Yeah.
Level 2 will charge your car in about 4 to 6 hours, and that has to be specially wired. It's going to need 3-phase 220 volts. You probably need a new entrance just for that. So that adds $500 or $700 to the $40,000 you're spending on the car for the wiring.
But if
Now,
you use a
that's part
standard,
of the cost.
if you use a standard outlet and assume it's going to sit there overnight,
Mhm.
that's, many people say that's sufficient. Didn't used to be the case, but you can just plug it into.
Well,
a
my
regular-
son plugged his Tesla
Well, that's 'cause
into our outlet, and after he blew the fuse twice, he went out there and reduced it from 14 volts to 8
You
volts,
have to
and
have
then
it
he was
set
able to
properly.
charge it.
Yeah.
Well, you have, so,
So
but it
learning
was
curve,
going
yeah.
to be a 30-hour, 24-hour recharge,
Yeah.
but he was there for a weekend. So yes, you can do it, but you should have a dedicated circuit.
But I think these.
And I think
level
that's a
three?
good idea
What's that level
to,
three?
because.
Level 3 will charge you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes, and that's suitable for gas station replacement. We don't know, I've been thinking about it, we don't know how it's going to work out practically, but level 3s look like they're suitable for restaurants and coffee places, someplace where you're willing to spend 20 or 30 minutes while your car charges. Right, so on the highway, that's great for level 3.
I've
'cause
seen
you
those
go-
Tesla level 3 chargers at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts.
Right,
Both
because you can
already.
go in and spend half an hour, or if you want to spend 10 minutes, you may get 80 or 100 miles of charge out of it.
Yeah.
But you
Do you know
consider
something?
yourself a destination, and then you've got 2 parking spots next to the parking attendant at Provincetown, which is where you can, and you get a free parking spot.
Right.
And we
not,
do,
not anymore. They moved them, and now they charge you $1.25 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
No,
And
they
the-
just put some up at Stop and Shop.
Yes,
Or what level are those?
probably, I don't know.
because that, again, 20 minutes, if you could,
20 minutes is fine, but the ones in Provincetown are level 2s, and they charge by the hour, and there's a 2 or 3 hour limit, I think.
But your point a minute ago is a good one about the car shows, because I believe with electric cars, whether it's a car show or just a dealer, a big part of what they're doing is education about OS, because it's new technology for most
Mhm.
people. So for sure, they're not just selling you any old car, they're selling an electric car, and they will be prepared, any dealer worth their salt, to explain all that, depending on the
Yeah.
car.
And the local electricians get to put the workstations in, so it makes the local work.
I was thinking about this today after I saw the Chevy Bolt. I was thinking, it's such a natural that there would be some kind of a overhang, just like there is in a gas station. I mean, that's also a detriment, is that most of these charging places are just like a pole, and you go there, and if the weather's inclement, it really stinks to have to,
You don't
plug in.
stand there, you
No,
plug it
but
in
you
and
plug
go
it
and get
in,
a
you
cup
go,
of coffee.
but even still, getting
Some
out
kind
of
of
all that.
cover,
Yeah, but it's some kind of a cover, and if the cover the canopy was, had solar panels on the roof.
Right.
I mean, what a
So
natural that
now
would
you're
be.
talking about
I mean,
level 2,
yeah.
because in level 2 you want to put it someplace where you're going to stay for 4 or 5 hours. The beaches are our destination.
right.
We
Right.
should put level 2s out at the beaches with solar canopies
Right.
to generate
Do
the
we want,
electricity.
were you saying that you were proposing that the Energy Committee have a project to set up an electric car show?
That's right.
Yes.
So, does somebody want to spearhead that, kind of like GP's going to do the Eversource thing?
Yeah, I can do stuff like that. I mean, I like doing that kind of thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
September, October, what do you think, Liz?
Set your own time frame. Research it to find out who it is and let us know.
But also too, I mean, that is a really good idea, Dick, too, about the beaches and,
For level 2, because
Yeah,
you're parked for 4
but-
hours or 6 hours.
I mean,
That could be a
we were at that meeting with the Cape Cod Commission. I mean, I wonder if there is you know, they are trying to identify locations for
Right.
EV charging stations. When, can you bring that to them and also ask them about
I
a
tried.
solar canopy? I mean, that would be an ideal thing, I mean, really.
So having watched it with my kids to figure out how they're trying to charge it, it's a function of how long you want to stay at the place where the charging station is,
Right.
as to what kind of a charging station you need. If it's a quick 15-minute stop on the road, you want level 3. If you're going to the beach all day, level 2 is fine. And if you're going to park overnight and use your father's electricity for free, then level 1 is fine.
Well, here's something else that's been in the back of my mind for a little bit, and that is, as the popularity of electric vehicles increases, then the question that I was thinking about is, what happens to the capacity of the grid?
So the capacity of the grid is sized for the worst hour of the worst month of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other times, there's lots of excess capacity. Okay, so you'd be nuts to go recharge your car when it's 90 degrees out and everybody's running their air conditioning. Okay, but that night, overnight, there's plenty of capacity.
But you also know that as electric cars become more and more common, there will be either regulatory or market-driven activities to increase the supply of power through hopefully wind and solar
Well,
or whatever.
that's what
So
I
there'll be a reaction when there'll be a demand.
Yeah.
There'll be a little bit more demand,
But-
and there'll be time for a reaction.
Well,
And to my point-
the thing I'm thinking of is, does it make sense to be less reactive, be more proactive in terms of, you can see it coming down the pike.
But the cars are smart. You can set the car to say, wait till 3 in the morning and then start charging for a few hours, and that's when there's no usage,
Yeah.
no demand. So you can set the car to smooth out the peaks and valleys.
Well, that's great, but, what about the summertime crowd descending on the Cape, and they all want to recharge their cars so they can go driving all
Well,
over the place?
the way to start with that, I would suggest, is with ISO New England. They're the one that manage the entire power
Yeah.
grid for New England, and they calibrate the supply of electricity from a single organization. And their job is to not just manage it day to day, but to foresee
predict, yeah.
trends going into the future. So they may already have a plan for that.
So to
I
my
hope so.
point,
But
solar canopies,
No, I
of the
agree.
charging
Of course.
stations, I
So
mean, yeah.
solar canopies,
yeah,
I mean,
the best-
that makes sense.
the best location for solar canopies is the back part of the White Crest Beach. One,
Right.
it's a
I agree with
destination. Two, it's near the high capacity power line.
right.
Actually, it's near the 70 kilowatt power line. There are two of them. One's 200 kilowatts, I think, and one's 70. And the 70 is the one you want to tap into, because we can't possibly get into the 200. But it's near that. We have the right of way to get there,
Yeah, that's
because we know that
perfect
from the
location. Yep.
from the wind turbines.
Yeah.
It's back so that it's not being sandblasted the way Jeff Pash was always worried about. The trouble is, right now, it's this dune, and the town has to bite the bullet and say, yes, we're going to pave that and make and extend the parking lot, which was always in the plan because we're losing parking spots everywhere else. So that's our fallback position. So it needs to be coordinated with the expansion of the parking lot. Parking lots at the beach are wonderful for solar canopies because the biggest danger to a solar canopy is that the snowplow takes out the canopy. And we don't plow those in the winter.
Right.
So they're perfect. They match.
And according to the review from the parking committee, we're not gonna move forward with that. I mean, I was
We're
That's
not
the
gonna
keeping
move
on
parking,
top of that.
Parking
for
task
that
force or
reason.
something? Is that the same thing?
Exactly. Because this past summer, for whatever reason,
Beach
you know,
usage was down.
yeah, oh yeah,
But
everything was down, but but the beaches were not. filled to capacity like they typically have been.
But if we combine the paving the parking with the solar canopies going up, which will generate some funding, it might incidentally cover creating the parking lot.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, but they're just not going to move forward at this point in time.
Well, that's
Can I bring up a couple
sure.
of small things? Just
Okay.
coincidentally, today I got an email from Bob Higgins Steele, who's the chair of what they now call, they have two committees, a Truro Energy Committee and a Truro Climate Action Committee, two separate committees.
Mhm.
But he contacted me saying, can we work together? Can we do regional projects, et cetera, and then the same day somebody else from Truro sent me an email today, the same thing. So I'm just passing that on, that there's a desire on the part of Truro to work.
Can we
with
put that
us.
under new and
Yeah.
old business?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
We
Yeah.
actually,
Before we do that, though, I'd like to get the assignments for the
Yeah.
select
good
board
idea.
meeting.
Yeah.
Now that we've seen what everyone's doing. So, the select board meeting, I think I will do an overview. First, briefly describing the charter change and the fact that we've expanded our committee.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes total for everything. So I don't want to spend too much time.
But it is your chance to remind people we're not forgetting, but plenty of people could have forgotten that they voted for this change.
Actually, the select board voted.
No, I know, but people,
Okay.
not everyone. It's
But
just a
the
good
way
thing.
I'd like it to be is I'd like everyone in the group to stand up for a minute or so and talk about what they are doing, so that the Out of Cape Energize, I'd
Yep,
like
I'll do
David to
that.
debrief that. I'll talk briefly about the PV at the landfill for the Global Covenant of Mayors. I'd like you to do that. For the grant process, I'd like you to do that. Any other suggested topics? Because those are the things I think we're doing, maybe future things. Chuck, is there anything you'd like to talk about?
No, I can't think of anything right now, but no.
Okay. Lily, do you think you can put enough together to talk about a prospective thing, or do you want not commit to it now?
No, I would rather not commit to it.
Okay.
For
All right.
tomorrow.
Anything else that anyone wants to do? So there are no view graphs because we didn't submit that. So it's just a 2 minutes on each topic. Each person will talk for 2 minutes.
one,
Everyone will be there, I hope.
yeah,
No,
oh,
I will not.
You won't.
I have to leave tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Tomorrow night, what time?
It's the select board meeting. It starts at 6. I don't know when we'll be on the agenda, but we should probably be there at 6.
so one thing I wanted to
Can you do that?
include, oh yeah, I'll be there already.
Lily, can you do that? Okay.
I just wanted to add and ask the select board if it was feasible to ask the town for $50,000 in matching funds this year for grants, because every single grant that we seem to go after requires matching funds, so.
Okay, let's put that on the agenda. We'll
Yeah,
find out.
that's a good.
Okay.
Get them
When's
at
the
least
next town meeting?
beginning to talk about
Oh,
it.
wait a second. Town meeting, no problem. Town meeting is
Yeah.
coming up in April. Yes.
Should I
it's-
bring it up tomorrow night, though?
Yes, you
As a-
should.
Right,
You should
as a
say that
feasible thing.
we would like a line item to go before town meeting. We will work on it, but because the timing is important. As long as it's after town meeting, so the money's available June 1st if we get it,
Ah, okay.
July 1st.
And
July
once it's
1st.
approved, if it's approved, then that information can be used right away in a grant proposal.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Once they,
So the funds are
Yeah.
committed as a town meeting, but, yes, so it's perfectly okay to do that. to
Okay,
say-
great.
okay.
So everyone's going to talk for a few minutes in the order I just said. I'll give an overview, then David, then I'll talk about Cape Energized, then you'll talk about the Global Covenant of Mayors and what we've accomplished. The scope is what we've accomplished in the last year. So you should include in that the fact that we submitted a Green Communities report based on the work, the data we collected under the Global Covenant of Mayors. Right, so it all ties in.
Right, yeah. Should we include that we started, I don't know if this counts, but we're looking into finding some, trying to go after, enforce legislation with other towns that are part of the Massachusetts towns on the Global Covenant that are also having trouble getting information from energy companies, the data,
So
and it's holding us back.
The answer is yes, and the way I see it is, the first thing is, for collecting information for the Green Communities Act, you got the Cape Light Compact to take a large role in that. For collecting information for towns as a whole, we've got the Cape Cod Commission involved in helping collect that data, but they don't have all the information, and it's probably going to take state legislation to help them get the data that they can then give to us. So we're working at it all, and we're working at all three levels.
And that's basically where we're at, where we left off with Robert, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the Global Covenant. Yeah.
And the meeting that Jake and I attended last week at the commission, once again, when they gave the introduction, they said that they were working on that, and they were working with the state on that. So,
So we are either just anticipating it or we're pushing them along. I think the latter is, or some combination of both.
Dick, you wrote an annual report. Have you
Yes.
distributed that to us?
I did and I didn't. So I should.
To go in the,
Yes. It was essential. I did circulate it, right?
the
I
draft.
thought you read it.
Yeah, I didn't change it much. Okay, but I will circulate what I submitted. Okay.
Dick, you're also gonna do an update on the landfill project, right?
Yes, and it was essentially what I read off here.
Right, yeah, I just
Yes.
wanted to mention that
Yes,
for a
that's,
yeah,
so it's, I'll introduce, you're second, I'm third.
right.
And how do we, who's,
Fourth.
fourth is the Global Covenant, Carolyn, and you're last.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
after they heard all the good stuff,
I'll
then
pass.
tell them we're asking for money.
Oh, rah. Huzzah.
Okay. All right, now, new business.
So a couple of quick new businesses. One, it's just an FYI, I don't propose, we could maybe put it on an agenda for the next meeting, but just the message from Truro is they would like to work with us on some
Okay.
projects.
That
So
sounds great.
I thought maybe we start out by kicking around ideas by having a joint meeting.
While you
Something
were
like
gone,
that.
somebody from Truro, we invited.
Yeah, remember we had Truro here, and we wanted them to join us on,
The MVP grant.
right, and they said, not now.
We caught them like a
Well,
deer in the
yeah,
headlights,
it's the
because she
climate
had
action.
not had
Okay.
their first meeting
Okay,
yet.
but it
Now they're-
appears that they now have that
Yes.
second, they now have a climate action committee, that's relatively new, and they
Yes.
seem to have a couple people who want it.
Yes.
Great. Okay,
Right.
so we'll
So
make
that's
outreach.
hopefully
Yes.
a good thing.
So we
Yeah.
do want to do
Yeah, okay. Secondly, this is a very small thing, but you never know. There's a young man who is a good friend of one of my sons, who's kind of my third son, because I kind of raised him because of problems in his family. And this guy is a super talented illustrator. I sent things out all the time about climate change, and I sent out one thing. Some of you got it. He got it too in Minnesota. He wrote to me and said, please, if there's any job for an illustrator, he would volunteer his time. Anything needs to be illustrated, like a brochure, a poster, a this or that. Just keep it in mind back of your heads. If something pops up, this guy's unbelievably talented illustrator. He can do anything. And
EV
so-
cars.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I was
there you
thinking.
go.
I was exactly thinking the same
So
thing.
I could get in front of Dunkin' Donuts right out in front, and people would see it go.
I could give him
by.
a project from this
Yeah.
committee and he would love to do it. So just
Okay.
keep note. Another thing is, I think John Cumberland would have done this if he was here, but he pigeonholed me at a, at a party and said, would you ask the committee to consider supporting this 350.org petition,
Okay, yeah, I was
which
gonna
is
bring that up.
very similar to the Covenant of Mayors.
Why don't you, explain? No, okay.
And I actually made copies of it. And this is something that, the idea of this, it's being spearheaded by 350.org, but the idea is to have a kind of a single statement that each town on the Cape will put before at their annual town meeting
Wow.
to
So-
show Cape-wide solidarity and
So John Cumberland is actually submitting this as a petition, so we
Right.
expect that this will be on
Will happen.
the annual town meeting.
yeah, and his question for us, I think, was would we as a energy committee support
Right.
this petition?
So I think we should add that to our agenda for next time.
Yeah.
and Give it some thought, see how we would like to tailor the wording to Wellfleet. Because they are doing a tailored petition for each one of the towns.
Right.
And so.
And I know
please
this
read
one here that you see in front of you is based on some other town. So
Yes.
we have to make sure it
But
works
they've
for us.
come before Cape Cod Commission, they've come before Cape Cod Compact, various boards, saying
Bless you.
asking each one of the towns on the Cape to put this on the annual meeting. But of course, feel free to suggest wording that makes it appropriate to Wellfleet.
Yeah,
So this is calling for a climate emergency declaration?
It's a change to the town charter? Is that what they're asking for?
General bylaw.
General
bylaws
bylaws,
of the
saying
town.
that there is a, and so in particular, we have a goal, our committee strangely enough said net zero by 2030,
Yeah.
which is slightly more ambitious than the as soon as it's practical
right,
in this petition.
right, right.
So that's what I was considering for the tailoring is
To
if
put
we
it,
think hey, we don't have to meet it, but nonetheless, we won't get there if we don't have some very ambitious goals. And we've already signed up for net zero in 2030 as a committee.
That's right.
So let's put that into the bylaw rather than as soon as it's technically
yeah, so
convenient.
that's a good, so then we ought to put that on our next.
Right, so
meeting
let's
agenda.
talk about that at our next.
So that's a
meeting.
copy for
What's
everybody.
his deadline for the Springtown meeting though?
The deadline for petitioned
Yeah,
articles
it's,
is probably about 6 weeks prior to town meeting, so it's mid-March.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a good point, we should get on it, but, yeah.
David, what group did this come out of?
350.org is
I just didn't
spearheading
get it.
this effort Cape-wide.
Has Robert Shapiro been talking about this? He's been talking about we need to declare a climate emergency thing, and I think it was coming from this organization too. So
Well,
he'll be
it could
really
be,
glad to
he was
hear
part of
about this.
another group, but I think it's all going in the same
Same
direction.
direction,
There are-
yeah. Okay, he'll be really
Okay,
happy
so
to
this
hear about this.
email this mail
Oh,
letter
what
that
is that?
I just got is on the same ilk, and I will Xerox it, I will scan it and send it to everybody so we can talk about this as well. at our
Here's the
next
vice
meeting.
copy. There's another copy, the vice copy, or I'll keep that one. That was one that came to the vice chairman,
Oh,
so.
Is it the same thing?
the same.
are you sure? Why don't you look at this, Chuck, and see if it's different, then check them both, send them both out.
And who is this
Because I don't have a
from?
picture, but I have
Yeah.
3 pages.
I didn't
Oh,
see.
you have
only have
3
two.
pages and I had 2.
Right.
Who is it from?
Sponsor is Representative Jennifer Benson. It was sent
Oh,
from,
that's Ben.
Oh,
No,
that's the
no.
H2810 bill, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
2/8/10.
Right.
No, this
yeah,
is a different
2810,
one.
Oh, okay. Well, this is
No,
the
that-
same.
No,
It
it
looks
is.
like it's the same.
I just
Yeah.
have, I have
Yeah,
double
it's the same.
pages.
Is it about
Same
the,
return address.
it's about the bill?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just have,
You
they,
can call it Representative Benson's bill, but I understand she's resigned.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I'll keep mine.
Can
Well, it's
I-
not the same. Is mine complete? Because you have. a
Yeah, you
picture.
just have extra, oh, I have one little picture, but you have a blank page. And this printed both sides.
Oh,
Can I have one? For
Sure,
the
why don't you
minutes?
take it?
Yeah. Thank you.
okay, I'll send my copy out to the entire committee.
Okay, thank you.
So one other
And
thing.
we'll put it on the agenda for next
Oh, go ahead.
time.
Could I
Yes.
just ask, where did we make that commitment, that goal, this
In the
committee?
green when did we make it? We made that commitment in our submission
charge?
for the comprehensive plan, which I think I promised to send out. No, I sent it out.
We pulled out the
I
part
sent
that if
that
you
out,
look, it's actually right on the town's website. It's the new charge for this committee.
No, the charge for the committee was
No,
not
That's
as
that's not the
complete
charge for the committee.
as the
Wasn't as
submission.
complete, but it's part of the same document.
But I think this afternoon I sent out the draft of the section 10,
I didn't see an email
Um,
from
Seen
you.
it yet.
which was what I found that the charge was based on, because
That's right.
what was it? Kevin Clements from Orleans
Yeah.
sent me an email this afternoon saying, your summary referenced this section 10 of the plan. Do you have a copy of the plan? So I looked and I only found our section of it. And I sent it to him, and then I think I decided to send it to the committee.
Yeah,
Maybe I didn't,
I
but I
don't think I
will.
got it, but
I did get it, Dick.
You did?
Wait a minute.
Okay,
I didn't get anything from you, Dick.
oh, great. I will send it out again to the
I don't think I
committee.
got it either, yeah.
No,
So
I
that's,
didn't. I got the minutes from Lily, that's what it was.
Right,
but when we voted, we did vote on the wording for the section 10 as a committee.
yeah.
Comprehensive plan, we submitted we had a submission to the comprehensive plan, and we voted on it.
Right. Yeah. That was, I forget when that was, last
Yeah.
spring or a little while.
Well, it's already 2018 that we submitted this, so
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
while, it's been a while,
That's why we're all forget. But,
yeah,
okay, so one more thing for me.
yes, go ahead.
I got a request from Gary Sorkin, who's the acting chair of the 95 Lawrence Road project, to come and meet with them about energy issues, energy conservation, etc., as part of their developing an RFP that they'll send to developers.
Mhm.
So Dick and I are going to meet with Cape Light Compact on Wednesday to talk about this more, because we think that they can be a partner and for sure a source of information to help the 95 Lawrence Road project have the right kind of language in the RFP that they send out to developers. Secondly, I'm doing some additional research, and I promised Gary that I would send him information ahead of time for the meeting, which is on the 31st. So that's just a little, not little, it's kind of a side thing that is a way for that project. We hope to get some good language and some good data for how to make those, whatever we end up with, be super energy efficient and all the way down to appliances and roof and insulation.
Net zero in their own right.
Perhaps, yeah. So anyway, that's,
Can I just mention that I sent to Kathleen Bacon and Elaine
McElroy.
McElroy information about a new building code that's like 2 levels above LEEDs.
yeah, this is not like stretch code 2 or something they call it.
It wasn't stretch code.
But it's like the next thing
I
after
can
stretch
send
code.
that to you. I mean, they were interested in it.
Yeah, if you
and I
would send
was
me that, because that
thinking
would
about it
be part of the
and
same
just-
process, sure.
So
That'd be
I'll
great.
send that to
That'd be
you.
great.
I have an addenda, which would be, I don't know if it's old business or new business. GB spoke about fire and the issue. In 2016, the town had a hazard mitigation plan. A
Yes, I
draft
sent
plan,
it out today.
And there was 5 pages on fire,
Okay.
urban and wildland. and Richard Pauley was the one who put in the information. So
Okay.
he was still on board then. So we should. It's been at least
That
processed.
I am positive I sent out to the committee today at 12:56 p.m.
But am I on that list?
Lillian Green.
I didn't get it.
No, I don't think I.
I don't think I got it
It
either.
must have been.
It says Chuck Cole, Sunspire, CapeCod.net,
Right.
Lillian Green, Sustainable Info 349, Gmail, Gorham, Robert,
And it didn't
John,
come-
Carol,
it didn't come
David,
back?
Suzanne,
I
It
and
says
Jeff.
sent.
didn't get it.
3:49 today.
Is it,
I'll go back and let's see.
The internet is clogged.
Did your
Okay.
son come plug the car in and
No,
mess
it
up
didn't,
the?
it didn't get me. I didn't get it.
Okay,
No, I don't think
I
any of
will
us
check
did.
why it
Nothing
didn't go
Can you
out.
resend?
Yeah.
It might be too
40
big.
and 4.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, I
oh
didn't get it
look
either.
at that
Okay.
message not delivered.
All right.
That's all right. That's all right.
I had to
I'll have
break
to
one into
upload
two
it.
about
I'll
that.
have to upload it to Google Docs and send a link.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Can I mention a piece of new business? I went to the local comprehensive plan committee
Mhm.
meeting last week. And there was a draft passed out that has to do with the energy committee, and I was told that it would get distributed to us for comment before being finalized. But in the process of looking at their website, I found a document called Local Comprehensive Plan 2008 Primary Responsibility Goals. It's 25 pages long, and it was updated recently. And there are 3 pages of goals having to do with energy. And is this a current thing that we're
2008? Or 18?
2008, but it was updated, I think, in 2016, and the committee seems to be using it in terms of planning.
That's what, the section 10 of that plan is what I just sent out.
It just
So
arrived.
is
Well,
that
at this
based on
meeting.
this or related to this?
I had
Just
sent it to
arrived.
Kevin. What?
Is that based on this or
We took the
related to it?
2008 plan, we updated it based on what we wanted to do. We took out wind turbines, we put in whatever else we put in. We put in climate, I don't know if we put in climate action, I think,
I think we did.
We
And we
did.
submitted that as
yes.
section 10 of the comprehensive plan that they're working on. So
What we did is we updated the plan because it was a lot of climate action, and then based on that, we updated our committee's charter to include climate action. So
Okay.
the section was not just what the Energy Committee did, but climate mitigation and action. And then we said, okay, but who's doing the climate action part? Nobody, we'll do it. So now that was what that section 10 I sent out was, but
And that supersedes this,
it
essentially,
was
is
based
what
on
you're
that.
saying.
Yes, it
Okay.
was intended for the 2018 version of the plan,
All right.
which never got published. And
But the-
probably
yeah.
won't in the format it was circulating, because subsequently the Cape Cod Commission changed the format and layout of the plan.
It's organized completely differently.
So we'll have to check on all this though and find out, is our original section 10, however much it might be different, really still gonna be in there? And they'll send out a draft of this, sounds like? And-
Well,
Yes,
yeah,
but it was like this long.
now I think
And
I sent out to
This is a
the
lot more
committee-
substantive
I
than
think
what I
I sent
saw
out to the
drafted.
committee, what's more substantive, the 2008?
This.
That spreadsheet that's on the
Yeah,
website.
this has got lots of things, and it says Board of Select says more information needed. I mean,
Okay.
it's lots of stuff in
I
here.
think I sent out the Bourne Climate Action Plan, which is the first one to be approved. It's a gorgeous document. It's about 50 pages or 70 pages, well-written. Bourne has 2 professional town planners on their staff. And they're raising the bar so high, I can't imagine how we're going to meet it.
When did you send that out, Nick?
I don't really, probably when I first saw it about a week or 2 ago.
I
I'll
don't
go
think I
see
got
if I
that
can find
either.
it
Yeah, I
again.
know, that's what about.
Does it
Now,
need,
that would
Does
have
that
been
sound
a link.
familiar?
does it need illustrations?
Yeah, right. We can save some money by
Carol,
getting
did
free
you send out
illustrations.
their draft?
I think I sent that
I
link because
guess
it
I
was way
can-
too
I can
big
try
to
scanning it.
send out
Yeah,
as a
that would be
attachment.
great.
But it was a great plan, I enjoyed reading it.
Well, you could check your send folder and we'll all check our inbox.
I'll go send it out again. It would have to be a link to the
Yeah,
Cape Cod
please
Commission
send
for
it
the
as a
board
link.
plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, the other thing, the new business, I think, is that Dick and I did go to this meeting, which was, I thought it was pretty interesting. And the Cape Cod Commission is really working
Yeah.
on climate change, and they're reaching out to a lot of different, well, to every stakeholder they can think of, basically, for feedback. So they're taking it seriously,
Yeah.
and they are working on it.
yeah, they seem to have really stepped up and changed their thinking.
Well, they aren't, you know, due deference to what seems to be the opinion. This was their plan all along. I mean, they felt they have a different approach than they did, you know, 5 or 10 years ago.
Right.
And this is what their plan was all along.
Well, we had a presentation of their plan, and we couldn't tell from what they presented that any of this was in it.
Well, I mean,
I mean, 3 bullets that say climate action,
But-
is not.
but they were going to work on that after they got the RPP.
Well,
That's what
regardless
they're-
of how they
that's
got
what
there, they're doing it now. In the beginning,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was minimized, but that's old news.
Yeah.
The good news is they're doing it now. They're putting resources.
So
They really
they
are,
had it.
and they're trying to figure out, once they synthesize, of course, you know, they have a consulting group, but once all the material is synthesized from all the different, focus groups they're having and all the different interviews that they're conducting, they're gonna come back and come up with some idea about how they move forward with it. One of the big questions I thought was interesting, in the group we were in, which was really mostly energy committees and other CLC, CVAC, with Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, Cape Lake Compact, and the Sustainability Initiative, what's that name? I keep on forgetting what their name is. Anyway, they were.
4 Cs.
5 Cs.
5 Cs.
Oh, well, no,
5 Cs.
no, they weren't actually participating, but there were, you know, 3 other stakeholders in the room with the energy groups, energy committees, and one of the questions they were asking, from the information that I presume they've gathered from other meetings, was, do you think it would be a good idea if the Cape Cod Commission was working on this from a standpoint of several different regions on Cape Cod, or taking Barnstable County as a whole and developing some sort of
Climate
plan?
action plan.
Plan, yes.
A climate action plan.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, as a whole, or specifically targeting different regions, full well knowing that every single town is going to take and customize it to their town after they create a climate action plan. So, I mean, I thought that was interesting that they were delving down that specifically, but they're really trying to
Yeah.
focus on everyone and everyone's needs.
Right. The only thing is we need to have better coordination between these semi-annual meetings we have of all the energy committees and this activity. Because I recognize a lot of the people in the room, because we had just had one of these other meetings, and I don't want to cut off the joint committees, energy committee meetings, you know, because they had a smaller group in a smaller room. I'd like it to remain as inclusive
Well,
as
the
the
joint
general
committee
energy
meeting
committee.
could include an invitation for the Cape Cod
Yes.
Commission to come.
And I'm sure the next time we have one of those,
Yeah.
that would be it, to get
Yeah.
them to participate.
Right,
in
I'm
that.
sure they would.
Well, you know, I think it could be that the Cape Cod Commission has more authority and more more clout actually, and more stature and standing, to bring together the energy committees, then, you know, I mean, under what wrapper all of a sudden we get this email, they want to do this thing, you know. But I mean, seriously, I mean, the Cape Cod Commission really does have the resources. They have the all of the staff members. They have the
They have a lot
facility.
of resources, but somehow they put a room that would barely hold 30 people, and we need to be more inclusive.
Yeah, so you have it up where the assembly meets,
And
you
we also
know.
want to,
So I mean, the harbor view
I think
room
we
is
also want to
fine.
include the vineyard, right? The last energy committee meetings included vineyard committees
I
also.
think
Yeah,
it did.
they
did.
They
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah.
Did they
They
get over
tried.
it? Wasn't
I
it
don't
weather?
They tried.
I missed the
But I do think
I did too, but
that might be a
nobody
better
was
venue and a better
Okay.
wrapper for all that, you know.
Anyway, the two groups should work together rather than,
Right, that's the bottom line. Yeah.
yes.
Just, I don't think this is necessarily new business, but it's a
Whole business. way.
think about thing. I heard on the radio as I was tuning around, maybe a week ago or so, the thing where they said that town of Brookline is talking about no new natural gas lines, no natural gas lines to new construction.
Huh?
Well,
That
Yeah,
should go
good.
into our model bylaw. We
Yeah,
don't have
trying
them
to-
now.
That would keep
But
it.
that, but,
Cut it
and,
and use that word.
you know, and the idea is to, you know, push people in the direction of heat pumps and stuff like that. So,
We are, now that's a very important point, because we don't have natural gas in town, but they're thinking of trying to extend the line.
Right.
So now would be a good time to send a
It's like the
message.
National Grid.
Don't.
well, the
Right.
other thing that got me thinking is, you know, what should we be considering in terms of, you know, deciding what the worst offenders are? I don't think there are any coal burning places anymore, but, you know, like, when somebody builds a new house, do they automatically just go with oil?
No, I
Or-
think we ought to be pushing air source and ground source heat pumps.
Mm-hmm.
And
So we want to get away from the carbon-based fuels, and that's oil
Right.
and natural gas.
so
Right
if,
now, people can do that, sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about is, you know, what's allowed currently, and what should we be advocating for
Okay.
not allowing
so
going forward?
let's talk about economics. Right now, the cheapest thing is air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. And therefore, if the economics were the only thing, they wouldn't be using any carbon-based fuel. So all we need to do is nudge that along.
Right.
Or solar generated mini splits. I mean, if you're making it on your roof.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
but it is one way to nudge it around, but
Along.
nudge it along is to, you know, in the building codes, to simply say,
That's going to be harder, but
That's,
yes.
yeah.
well, I'm just curious how the town of Brookline's going to make it work.
Well, they have a more liberal population than we do. They have a very well-heeled population, and the money doesn't matter, especially when it's a break-even.
Well,
We have to worry about people who really can't afford things.
I mean, the problem
But
is, it's
by the
existing
way-
homes, you know, it's not just
By the way,
new stuff.
if we really actually had any low-income people who owned homes around here, they can get air source heat pumps combined with solar, combined with battery at no cost to them.
Yeah.
The problem is, we don't have many low-income people who own homes.
They rent.
They rent. But we have to publicize that.
Who is it?
Cape Light Compact.
Cape Light Compact.
EV, Cape and Islands Electric Initiative, I forget the acronym. It
So-
combines all three, and it's free for low-income people.
why wouldn't they want to do something?
Totally free for your heat pump now.
Why wouldn't they want to do something similar if it's a,
Who's the they?
whoever is, who foots the bill on that?
The ratepayers through energy efficiency funds.
Okay, well, so why would it make any difference whether they own or rent?
Doesn't make any difference, but renters don't want to invest because it's not their investment. If you had an apartment you're renting out that's deed restricted to rent only to low-income people, you're totally eligible for this.
Oh, okay, all right, that's what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
and this is really good that it's being videotaped so that people out there can actually hear this.
Right.
So if you're out there, take advantage.
But there are rental properties that are not deed restricted. That
Yes,
low-income
but that,
people rent,
but we're
and
not
that's
going
harder.
to subsidize a rental property with a current low-income tenant who then goes out and rents it to summer rentals at,
Right, right.
$4,000 a
Oh,
night.
yeah, no, I'm not thinking,
it has,
I was
so if it's
trying to-
rental, it needs to be.
I was trying to get the deed restricted word in there, but I
Deed
couldn't,
restricted means that it's permanently low income,
right,
yeah.
okay, good.
The other thing that makes a difference getting to the economics is
Low or
is-
moderate, by the way, it's not just 60%, it's up to 120% of median income.
there are plenty of people who don't qualify as low income who the cheapest thing for them now, let's say they have an oil burner, let's say it's medium old, the cheapest thing they can do is do nothing if they're not low income. And so that's a challenge for Cape Light Compact and for everybody to say, how do we get somebody like that the right kind of assistance so that they can go with their source heat pumps too.
The-
Existing,
the
or
pay-
propane, they heat their
Yeah.
homes with propane,
The
Well,
they have a
payback
tank in
period-
the ground.
payback period
I'm
for
oil
air
heat right now, and
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about that. I'm like, I just want to get rid of it.
The
Right.
payback period for air source heat pumps is about 5 to 7 years. That is, within 5 to 7 years, you'll get your money back in reduced costs,
Right.
even if you're not paying for electricity, as opposed to getting it for free from the solar panels.
Yep.
But at this climate, you have to be careful that you have a backup
Backup.
system.
Right.
So if you have a working oil pump, as I do, you leave it there.
That's the backup.
That's
And
your
you just
backup.
don't use it very much.
So,
But you've shifted your usage to electricity, which is 100% green on the Cape.
But I think that
Going to Cape Light
the
Compact.
most important point about this in a way to me, I mean, these are things that are already being worked on in a lot of ways, but the thing that isn't, I don't think, is the extension of natural gas to this area. For a long time, one would say it's a good thing, it's desirable.
Right.
Natural gas has been spread all over the country. But if we say no on the Outer Cape, because we don't want more carbon-based fuel coming in here, that's an important and probably difficult thing to assert. Doable, but very important.
But
Very
on
important.
the other hand, a little organized opposition may discourage them from doing it.
Right?
Oh, I expect.
Because-
Make it a fracking issue, which it
Could
is.
be a fracking.
That's where they
it's a
come
fracking
from.
issue.
I mean, you'd think we were so far away from it.
Because
but,
before National Grid starts investing money, if they know there's a groundswell of opposition to prevent connections.
That's right.
I think it would be
Right.
great if we could take
That's good.
Maybe I'll
Get
get
Robert
10
on this
people
one.
to-
He might-
But it would be great if we could make it an energy committee project.
We should
to-
study it before we jump
We
on
need
the
to study it.
bandwagon.
We need to
Yes.
find out what are they planning so far. It's
Yes.
probably on their website.
Brookline?
No,
Oh,
No,
National Grid.
What are they already planning for?
Right.
Where is the
It
planning?
needs some thought, but yes, we should think about this seriously.
so our next meeting is scheduled for February 10th at 6:30 here at the COA.
Is that a Monday night?
I can't remember, we set the date
Should
last
be.
time.
February 10th, you said?
Yeah,
And as I recall, I
That's a
need to
Monday.
reserve the room, but I'll check. And do we want to schedule the March meeting while we're at it?
What was the question?
Sure.
March,
March.
scheduling March.
So
So 6 o'clock on the 10th?
6:30?
6:30.
30,
I think.
okay, sorry.
So it would be either the 9th or the 16th
Of March.
of March.
So,
9th is Purim, if anyone cares.
okay, so,
I'll bring Hamantash.
that would be nice. That would be very nice.
I have to go find out
Well, I
where I
wonder
get
if the,
some.
March, the earlier one in March might be smart, is if we have something we want to do to get on the annual meeting.
Okay, we're,
Warrant.
both of us we're gonna be out of town.
Both
She's
of
good,
them?
right, she's going on to Greece and,
Oh,
In March?
nice.
March 16th.
Oh,
So,
But not
The
tonight.
ninth.
so March 9th would be better for you.
yes,
Sounds like it.
yeah.
Let's
Okay,
do it.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's it.
We could do it on the
That's wonderful.
16th, and we could all
I'm so
meet
happy
in
for you.
Santorini or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a small point of
Really?
information,
Yes,
a learning moment.
okay.
Awesome.
I'm at the Pond Hill, solar panels, heat pumps, keeping our pipes from freezing. And I watch it, so if we have a week of warm weather, I turn it off. But I want to set it at as close down to 50 as I can, because I just want to protect it. So I try to turn my thermostat down, it goes to 64. What's the deal? That's
That's as far as it
14
goes.
degrees, that's as far as it goes. And what's the deal? I talked to Buddy Payne, he says, oh, I have on mine, it's a Mitsubishi Fujiyama something or other, he said. And it has a winter button on the remote control.
Oh.
So I went to write my remote control, then I went through the manual 3 times. No issue. And then I went into the international icons. So
There.
this season, what do we have it set for? I had it set for snowflake. But snowflake represents cooling. I should have the icon for the sun. Oh wait, it's wintertime. So if you put it on cooling wisely,
We have the same.
they
thing. We have
say
the snowflakes.
you should not cool down to 50. No human needs to go down to 50 degrees for cooling, but for heating, sure enough, it goes down to 50.
Yeah.
So easy, but it was an international icon that I was hung up on. But interesting
Isn't there
point.
an ink that does either or? That's mine, it's the first, either or, it will dynamically switch between.
Oh, I
either
don't. This is a
and
Dakin. I don't know. I was going through my manual.
Mine has to. Oh, there's an auto setting.
Yeah.
There is an auto setting.
Auto
The
that has
one
a
that does
calendar
either,
thing.
Makes you go
either
back and
air
forth.
conditioning or heating will probably also get you there.
Okay. There's a third icon that I haven't found out yet. A melting snowman. I don't know.
Something like that.
But anyway, that was an easy fix. It didn't cost a thing, and 50 keeps us at 45. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay.
all in favor?
All right.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Leah.